Okay. Leanna, you want to start us off? I got it set to where you can share now if you want to share. Now, I really hope we're going to be able to figure out this new platform format with Zoom.
Yes, it's frustrating, even for us lay people who don't use it, to try to use it. I'm going to, I had my mic turned off, sorry about that. First one I'm going to do is a real short one about Cuda Q.
Okay, so we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, you guys, when we were talking about AI and supercomputers. If you forgot, that's where that comes from.
Okay, so here's the search term going from the bottom to the top in the middle here in the red. Cuda Q. Oh, goodness. This isn't the one I was looking at to share. Just a second here. Well, I'll just share this one. They all have the same thing in them. I've had it. What I had on the other code was it was Cuda Q twice hooking to each other. Let's see what I have here. This is not the one I was looking at. Okay, quantum. This is quantum. The other one I had was more together. It's quantum hooks with mechanics right here. In Hebrew, they don't. In my dictionary, it does not have mechanics in a plural, but it has mechanic. So that mem on the quantum mem, and then wa het, and then mechanics right here, and then program. Am I going too fast?
No, you're fine.
Okay. This is Elon right here. And I didn't really know Elon was involved in it, but I guess he is. And let's see. Musk is up here.
Oh, yeah, he's a major player in this whole thing.
Okay, yeah, I listened to a really interesting video all about it. It's kind of scary for me, but, you know, here's Cuda Q again down here. And basically, let's see, this is not the one I was looking at. Oh, computer program. And that's all I have on that. It's very short. But I got like 175 returns in the New Testament on it. And so I just wanted to confirm what you were saying last week or the week before. So I'll stop sharing that one. And let me share this other one. Okay, this is, oh, what a blessing this was when I found this. The search term is Song the Lamb, right here. And I call it Song of the Lamb, which is referred to in the book of Revelation, that they'll sing the song of Moshe and the song of the Lamb. And I thought this is really interesting, Jonathan. Ephod runs right down here. See that? And I'm like, what? I can't quite remember what ephod, but wasn't that on the breastplate of the priest where he could get answers from the Most High?
Yes.
Okay. So it just glorifies the Son so much. I just love this code. Right here is my name going across here. Here, where this lamed is, it's in with this word here, which I can't remember now. Oh, yeah. That is, let me see. It's not Yeshua. Oh, Tola. Do you remember what the Tola is? It's a worm in the Middle East, the one that that turns white, and it gives in Psalm 22, if you read that psalm, you know, when he was on the cross, when Yeshua.
You're talking about the crimson worm, huh?
Yes, the crimson worm. And it runs right through here, Tola. And it's joined with Yeshua, which tells me he indeed, when he said, Father, why have you forsaken me? He was actually trying to get the people to remember the prophecy in Psalm 22, which is all about his death, burial, and resurrection. And the Tola worm is the worm that gives its life for its babies, and it turns red like, you know, crimson blood. And so I found this in here too. It's in here a couple of times, but another thing that was interesting was,
and that's because he made reference to himself to this particular worm, by the way.
Yes, he did. It's so obvious. If I was a Pharisee or a priest in that day, and he mentioned that, I would be running home going, let me look at the scriptures, because it explains why a person couldn't see that. I don't understand, but they were blinded, you know, but you know, he is the absolute sacrifice lamb that we're fixing to celebrate on Pesach. So it's very exciting to me that he quoted that first line in Psalm 22. And if you read on, you just can't keep from crying. It's so beautiful. Okay, right here, we have Yahuwah up here. I hope you can see what I'm doing. This word here is sing. This word is verse. And I was shocked when I found all this. This is praise. And this word here, I believe, is magnify. Let me see. Or I was going to write all this down, and then in my mind, it was an hour. I had another hour and I didn't. So that is rejoice right there. Rejoice. And this word here is Arya, lion. You know, he's the lion and the lamb. This is also lion. In the green, the shin, the ket, and the lamed. So lion and lamb is in here. Over here in the left corner, we have Gaal, which is the Redeemer. Yahusha here. And then, let's see. Then going up this way, we have Yeshua going up in this corner. Coming over, let's see. Oh, voice of Yahuwah. Absolutely, Yeshua was the voice of Yahuwah when he was here. He told us, you know, what the Father expected, and he kept the Torah, and so that's in the beautiful text there underneath, but I love it. Okay, and then we have this word here is root, and then we have shell, which is of David, which that's prophesied that the Messiah would be of the root of David and of the root of Jesse over here in this corner. Of Jesse. It's very, very exciting. Right here, I thought this was interesting. Do any of you guys ever think that your codes might be directing you in some way? Because I do. Do you ever, Jonathan?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of times they're personalized too.
Right, because this has my name, but all the codes I do have my name in. But this, I was a singer for years and a worship leader, and this right here says audio visual. And I'm like, maybe I should be doing something. And it says sing verse right here. And this one is praise. This word here is praise. We have Elijah over here. And up here in the, I don't know if you can see this. I can see it. It starts in the far right corner, and it's wormwood. It goes all the way across the code. And then under here is Elijah. I told you all about that right here. I love this. Shofar, Shin, Wa, Pei, Resh, Wa. I don't know if that's a Dalit. No, that's a. I can't remember which letter that one is. It looks like an N, but it's rider. That word is, so it says shofar rider. Anyway, I felt like this code was giving glory to the Most High. Oh, I forgot this corner over here, one little part. Over here in the left-hand corner, this is Yahusha. And then right in the middle there is the Lamb. See that? Hey, Kaf, Bet, Shin. So it's very exciting to me to do this, especially since we've got Passover coming up, to honor the Son of the Most High, and to look at this saying, okay, Leanna, maybe you should be singing and praising him for all he's done, because he is the voice of Yahuwah. And he's the one who showed us how to walk the way we're supposed to walk. And does anybody have any questions?
No, but that's beautiful.
Okay, thank you so much for letting me share.
Absolutely. You know, there are some that sing the scriptures when they read them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because this is all in the book of Jeremiah 32 to 52, which I love the book of Jeremiah. I've got 3 codes about the Song of the Lamb that are all different. And the verse that I picked is Jeremiah 30, verse 10. And I didn't get my Bible back over here to my computer. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Anybody there got a Bible open? It's Jeremiah 30, verse 10. Let's see, Jeremiah. The one I have next to me is out of order. Let me see. Jeremiah. It's one that I've heard a few songs.
Restoration of Israel. You ready?
Yes, please.
So do not be afraid, Jacob, my servant, or do not be dismayed, Israel, declares Yah. I surely will save you out of a distant place and your descendants from the land of exile. Jacob will again have peace and security, and no one will make him afraid. And then on verse 11, it says, I am with you and will save you, declares Yah. Though I completely destroy all nations where I scatter you, I will not completely destroy you. I will discipline you only in due measure, and I will not let you go entirely unpunished.
Amen. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Yeah.
And thank you, because this is such a joy of my life to get to do codes. And this one really blessed my heart. So I'm going to quit sharing now. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that, that it blesses you, because I feel the same way when I'm looking at codes, and especially Yeshua codes. They can get pretty emotional, sometimes really deep in thought. And, when you start weighing the gravity of some of them, it's truly amazing. Right. All right. Good to see you, Paul. You was able to join us this week. Did you want to share anything?
I just got home.
Did you?
Thought I'd jump on here. So, yeah, had a good weekend.
Very good. Did you have anything you wanted to share?
I don't. No.
All right. I'm going to try to share this from Chuck Missler, you guys. Chuck is probably one of the best ones that can relay this content. And I could have repackaged this, and it would have took me a little bit of time, but there's no point in reinventing the wheel. I do have codes that relate to this. So in my research, I found, something he did like 12 years ago, and I thought it was really interesting how relevant it is for today. Now, I could have picked some content or some, stuff to, pull my terms from that are more current with current terms. And we can still do that. But I think it's really interesting to see how much we have progressed, and what I mean we as humanity has progressed in as far as technology is concerned in the past decade, right? So he goes through a lot of information, and again, I really hope that we can share this. I don't know what's going on with Zoom, but this information is really good. Let's see what happens. You got to let me know. Are you able to see that, or are you just seeing something black?
Just something black. Oh, there you go. Now we can see.
Extraterrestrial. Can you guys hear the sound?
Yes, we can.
Very relevant.
You can hear the sound?
But you will. Because we're moving.
You guys can hear the sound. And you can see the video.
Yes, there's the bell.
Hallelujah. All right, let's see how we do with this.
No sound.
Did it go out? I was messing with it. I was trying to turn it up. Was there always no sound, or did it just go out?
No, there was
no.
All right, let's try it again. I won't mess with it once we get here.
Hey, Jonathan, I have a quick question.
Yes.
If I do closed captions on here, is that gonna bother you or anyone? I don't know how this works.
What do you mean?
Because I have such a hard time hearing.
No, on your end, you could do closed captions.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's see, one more time, you guys, and then we'll get into the codes that I have for you.
And it's not part of visibility there. I'm not seeing it. It's all.
No sound.
Yeah, no sound.
Are you guys hearing the sound?
I'm not.
No, you gotta let me know. You guys don't let it just keep playing without any sound. Let me know. Maybe I have to leave my microphone on.
We did let you know, but you weren't hearing us for some reason.
Let me know if you can hear it now.
We issued this original story back in 2001.
Yeah.
Updated a few times, and one of the things I wanted to update it here. And so now the reason we call it the Sorcerer's Apprentice, the biotech, the Sorcerer's Apprentice, most of us may remember that old castle. Mickey was clad in a sorcerer's robe and hat, and they had psychedelic armies of brooms and Retinus March and Buka Symphony went on. And only when the castle was a flood, and the sorcerer wake up because his student had done it improperly, and he had to undo what he did. And of course, Mickey got off just with a swat of the broom. But we may not get off as well, because the Sorcerer Apprentice is unleashing things that people may not realize where they're going. And it's interesting that technology is often a very close cousin of sorcery, even in the literature here. And so, many of the things we enjoy every day would look like sorcery to the people back then, flying through the air at the speed of sound, and communicating images with the speed of light, and even landing on the moon. These are ideas we take for granted today, but I want to get that in perspective. And so we want to move on here a little bit. And I'll get off all, we don't get all the history here. But we're moving into what some people are calling the age of the hybrids, and I'll explain why. We're going to talk about one aspect of that, and that's the move towards transhumanism. What do we mean by that? And we're going to discover there are 4 technologies that are accelerating so fast, it's amazing, and they're converging upon each other to create some changes that really are changing by the week, not by the year. And we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges they present, but we'll also highlight some of the dangers that should not be overlooked. But we're going to talk on another topic. It's a close cousin of that one. We're going to talk a little bit, not too much, relax, but we're going to talk a little bit about alien invasions. And there are two kinds of people here in the world, those that think they're just a myth, and those who have done a little bit more homework and may surprise you. So we'll go into that a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the Nephilim. Everybody wants me to talk about Genesis 6, and it's astonishing to me that that how many people have come to the Lord through those peculiar, weird things we put out there years ago. Not only in Genesis 6, but also after that. And we'll try to explore a little bit, what did Jesus mean when he said spoke of the days of Noah? As the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. What did he mean by that? And so we're going to surprise many here with talk a little bit about the expectations of the Vatican. The Roman Catholic Church has a substantial investment in technology, staff, and facilities, and are openly admitting they are preparing to receive an alien visitor. What
So we're pulling terms from this presentation. You guys keep that in mind.
on earth is all that about? We'll touch on that. But after going through some of this background, it'll be light and fast, so I hope I won't bore you too much on some of that. But what are we always need to answer the so what question. So what's that got to do with me? And we'll try to deal with, what do these challenges mean to you personally? And so that's where we're headed. A little bit about transhumanism. There are 4 technologies you need to be aware of. And one of them, of course, is genetics and microbiology. I assume in this audience, I don't have to elaborate on that. You're familiar with the incredible discoveries that are continuing to be made every day in that whole field. But there's another technology, you may not follow too closely, but it's worth following very closely. And that's another field of study called robotics. And we're also going to talk a little bit about nanotechnologies and what are these things. And finally, of course, the area of artificial intelligence. And so we'll talk about their aspirations, and that will startle you, and what their priorities are, and that may surprise you. And we'll talk about its dangers. So that's the core of what we're going to talk about. We'll go into some other things too. Tampering with the engines of creation. You and I are on a journey between the myths of yesterday and the realities of tomorrow. Many of us are victims of myths of the past, and we're having to unscramble the realities of tomorrow. Now, I won't spend a lot of time on the island of Moreau, but you may recall that H.G. Wells published a science fiction novel about this island where this doctor combined different beasts into other creatures and so forth. And it warns of in the novel, the dangers of unchecked and irresponsible scientific research. And what's interesting about the novel, that's unfolding as we speak for many reasons. These animal hybrids that H.G. Wells in his model mentioned were called chimeras. And that was a mythical Greek creature with a lion spirit, a ghost body, and a serpent's tail. And scientists today have created sheep that possess human hearts and livers, just to mention a few. Pigs that have been born with human blood. Did you know that? How many knew that? See, that's something not widely known, but it's much heralded by many. And are they altering the genetic makeup of an animal kingdom? Is that opening up a Pandora's box? Is that going to open the door to diseases we never heard of? And so forth. That's how we can be so terrified by the bird flu among the humans. Why? You'll discover that these things are creating things we didn't expect. Scientists at the Salk Institute in San Diego recently engineered mice that possess a small percentage of human cells. I think I hired one of those ones. So they injected embryonic human stem cells into the brains of rodent fetuses, resulting in the birth of mice with both human and rodent brain cells. Now, you think you may have met some of them. I don't know if they. And one of the goals of this research is very noteworthy. They're trying to make realistic models of neurologic disorders that may prove useful in studying other diseases. They all have good goals. Irving Weissman of Stanford University and his team injected human neural stem cells into mouse fetuses, and that helped make the first mouse with a nearly complete human immune system. So these things are worthy of study. There's worthwhile potential benefit here. And so the percentage of brain cells in the existing mice is only about 1%, but he thinks that they can make them almost entirely equipped human cells as they go forward. So now the problems in these areas, while there's noble goals, there are few safeguards against errors or even open abuse. And of course, there are cross-species implications that there's no way to anticipate. And they actually have mice that they're growing human organs on in the hopes of actually putting them to practical use. And if that picture doesn't bother you, you haven't looked at it carefully enough. Okay. Unknown diseases or complications. Tampering with the human genome is part of the thing that's going on here. We're talking about genetically engineered athletes. That's a major topic. And scientists at Johns Hopkins University discovered a gene in mice which controls growth, the GDFA, and the growth differentiation factor, they call it. And so they yielded super mice 3 times larger and much stronger than the normal ones. This was back in Nature magazine. And in this field, many of these slides are quickly eclipsed by things that are happening each week. So I won't spend a lot of time on these, but there are mice that grew 15 to 30% larger than normal, and even there's potential fruit from this, but there's also dangers. That's really the main point I want to get across here as we go. And there are also potential self-replicating mutations, and they're all impossible to fully anticipate. You can't anticipate the mutations. So while they may have experiments that have a certain goal, what really derives from this is hard to get. And the other problem is these are not done in well-organized laboratories, government laboratories or university. There are many of the technologies here are done in garages, basements. There's no regulatory procedural disciplines. So this is an uncontrolled environment. And there are many small, intensely competitive laboratories chasing these things. And very few government or established labs that are the main ones here. Now, the think tanks back in Europe as well as here point out the free access to genetic sequence data for the human genome and large number of other genomes, including pathogenic microorganisms, could pose a significant threat if misused. No kidding. That's pretty self-evident. And these are all from the International Speech Research back some years ago. And the terrorists might develop a pathogen that could target a specific ethnic group. See, as we understand the genome, you can start creating diseases that can target specifics. And that's pretty spooky. Well, there's also this whole area of robot weapons that you may be hearing a lot about. I wanted to get a couple of them that I thought were interesting because they're predicted in the Bible, whether you realize it or not. In Jeremiah 50, verse 9, there's a verse, and I'm not going to concern ourselves here with the context, but just one phrase that's in it. Jeremiah records, "For lo, I will raise and cause up to come up against Babylon, the assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. And from thence shall she be taken." Get this. "Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert band, and none shall return in vain." Now, in the English, you don't pick it up, but in the Hebrew, it's very emphatic. It actually, as of a mighty expert, the expertise is not in the shooter, it's in the arrow. Did you pick up on that? The verb is sakal in the Hebrew. It means to be prudent, circumspect, wisely understand, and prosper. That's a characteristic of the arrow, not the shooter. It's a fellow participle masculine singular absolute. It means to have insight, to give attention to, consider, honor, be prudent, to have comprehension. In other words, the arrow has comprehension. Do you see what it's saying? Now, can you give me some examples of that? Yes, I can. And by the way, the ISV says the arrows will be like a skilled warrior. They won't miss their targets. The NAS, the arrows will be like an expert warrior. So this is not a contrived translation. The intelligence is in the arrow, and they can't miss. In other words, these are smart weapons. They're mentioned in the Bible. Today we take them for granted, but I wanted to put a big biblical root to that. The arrow is conscious. It's anything shot from an engine of war, shot by, but in 1611, when they King James, that was obviously a bow and arrow. But the same word could be used for a missile or anything thrown as an arrow or a javelin. And in that sense, I'll get through some of this here.
All right, has a little technical issues here, but we're going to kind of
strange noise. Next one.
we're going to kind of move through it. There we go.
Device. It's coming to a war near you. It has a system of range about 2,300 feet, and I believe they're using it in Afghanistan. But the gun sight has a gun sight that uses a laser that measures the distance, and it also sets a time on the bullet to explode. So you can shoot over the guys. If he's behind a barrier, you can shoot over the barrier and nail him. And so it's a bullet that has the effect of going around corners. It's a game changer. And they'll be able to use this to target snipers hidden in trenches rather than calling airstrikes. And so it has a trade. Whoops. Well, we don't have no time on this. I'm having trouble with the other thing. So it's a game changer basically. And all the soldier has to do is the thing was add a meter using a button on his trigger, and when fired, the explosive round would carry exactly 1 meter past the wall before it explodes. In the nature of a hand grenade. But let's get back to the transhumanism more directly. Direct human extension, supplementing the human anatomy. The FDA has approved a telescopic bionic eye implant, by the way. This is the beginning of it. It involves removing the lens of the eye completely and replacing it with a now FDA-approved implant capable of magnifying almost 2 to 3 times. And the specific thing isn't that important, except it shows you a direction they're going. They're able to do things that are not just replacement for something you lost, but something that might have functionality that goes beyond what you had. We're going to look at a few of those if I can get this thing to. This is very strange. Okay, well, go ahead manually here if I can. Okay. Well, in robotics, they don't use gears and hydraulics anymore. They actually use muscles. They have a bionic muscle is 100 times stronger than yours, and they're made out of elastic metal called the shape of memory wire, and they're chemically powered with alcohol. Don't jump to conclusions, but and these artificial muscles are, of course, funded by the military, as you can imagine. And so let's just keep moving on here. While it's working here. There's machine emplacements, of course. And the thing that impedes robotics is skin. Well, one of the things they're trying to do is get direct limb-to-brain communication with these things. And robotic limbs have limited motions, and the user can't feel what he or she is touching. A new approach using optical fibers implanted around the nerves can transmit more data and let the prosthetics speak to the brain. Scientists have discovered they can stimulate a neuron to send a message by shining infrared light on it. And so DARPA, the Advanced Research Projects Agency of the Department of Defense, is awarding contracts to explore these kinds of things further. The direct brain-to-computer interfacing, people are actually connecting these devices to their brain. And a monkey here is operating a robotic arm with direct brain-to-computer interfacing. And it's responding to his thought patterns. They can quick.
So with this, you guys, I want you to think about iron mixed with clay. That's kind of where he's heading with this. This is Neuralink. And by the way, we do have this as a code with Elon Musk all over it. So this is a real relevant thing that's happening right now in real time.
Quickly learn to control voluntarily. They can control the firing rates of individual multiple neurons in the primary motor cortex if rewarded properly and so on. And I won't get into those details. So the main point is the thing that's held robotics back is a replacement for skin. And they now have found a way to make synthetic skin that is so sensitive it can feel the footprint of a fly, which means the robot can be designed to tell what it's picking up. Is it a wine glass? Is it a bowling ball? Is it a piece of silk? It can tell. And so the synthetics, that's been a major breakthrough in the robotics area. And I won't get into there's two different ways you can do that. I won't take the time to spend our time on that. The other field, I want to go through 4 fields. We've talked about the genetics, we've talked about robotics briefly. There's a field called nanotechnology that I want you to be aware of. That involves the manufacture and manipulation of materials at the molecular level in the atom. The smallest things you can get. And
all of these are searchable terms, you guys. Nanotech, genome, transhuman, all of these. So just think along those lines. Like we're doing a research for a code for this content, right? So we want to think about those terms and kind of take notes on it when you're doing a search.
Give you a feeling of a nanometer. It takes about 100,000 nanometers is a piece of paper. So nanometers are very, very small. So you're talking about molecular size machines. And they can develop drugs. For example, it can go and find a place in your body and deliver a microdose, if you will, that would have an intensity 10,000 to what you could do any other way. So
happening right now.
Tremendous potential. And our skills at developing nanomaterials, of course, is going so fast that it's hard to even keep up with any one of these. But the big one, the fourth one of the ones I want to summarize here is artificial intelligence. And that's the blurring the distinctions between the man and the machine. And there are ways now that it's getting fuzzier and fuzzier as to which is which. The first step towards computer mind reading has come from using brain scans to identify thoughts. And they're doing this at Princeton University's Neuroscience Institute. And these brain scans there's patterns that they're starting to study. What's exciting about this too is it's non-invasive. They don't have to directly connect to the brain. They can read the brains through other devices. I'll show you here in a minute. And the basic idea is to try to determine what's on the subject's mind and see what they can infer from the brain scans directly. And so they're looking at the pattern, studying that. And so there's a lot of optimism. We'll come back to that here too. There's actually a television set being marketed in China by Hire, in which you change channels by thinking about them. And the way this works is you have to, or change the volume, whatever. What you do is you wear a mindset. Now, this, by the way, is a retail device. They're sold on for a couple $100, primarily for university use. But they will measure and report non-invasively the brain waves, and that gives you, they're primarily used for games and such. But Hire is using it to try to be able to control your television set. I think most of you realize the toughest thing to control on the television is off switch. We'll move on here. But this mind reader headset is what startled me is it's a retail device. And if you're interested, you can track it down the internet for a couple $100. You can buy one and figure out something to do with it then. But the Army, though, has a mind control project where they're trying to develop thought helmets that would harness silent brain waves for secure communication among troops. And that's not right. Those are contracts that are being led. They hope to lead to direct mental control of military systems by thought alone. And they're a long way from getting there, but they're letting research contracts in that direction. And so 5-year contracts have been awarded to a coalition of scientists, both at the University of California, Irvine, Carnegie Mellon, and the University of Maryland, to try to decode the activity in those brain, and so the soldier radio commands to one or more comrades by thinking of the message he wants them to get. But perhaps the most dangerous of all these things are the brain-to-computer interfaces, or BCIs they call them. And they're actually implanted inside the skull, but rest outside the brain rather than within the gray matter. And this is what most people that are in this field are. This thing is acting strange here. We can show that. Is that on there too? Yeah. When these professors connect themselves to computers or other devices, they are typically PhD, and PhDs are very, very trained in a specificity, a specific area. But there's something that goes along with the PhD, and that's pride. And one of the things that startles me is to realize that these people, and I've trafficked with many of them in government labs and elsewhere, have usually zero insight theologically. They have no grasp of the field of study called demonology, and in a field within which there are things called entries, measured ways that demons can gain access. And when you open up communication channels, those are two-way channels. So the kinds of things that are possible, I'm not saying they're prevalent at the moment, but are possible, are really quite disturbing. But anyway, the best resolution you're going to do with this kind of stuff is direct connection, and people are doing things like that. Let's shift a little more to the computer side of it. IBM has unveiled experimental computer chips designed for a new generation of brain-inspired computers that learn from what's going on. And I'm talking about the hardware itself does. Cognitive computing aims to use information from many different inputs. So it's multiple input, and it's self-programming, if you will. And these chips would allow a sensor-studded glove to monitor sights, smells, textures, temperature, grocery products, whatever. There's all kinds of commercial potential here. But they'll also integrate messages in ways that make far more intuitive than we normally think of in terms of software alone. And I'll look into the specifications of it, because any specification I put in a slide is out of date a week later. So let's just keep moving here. But there is a comment here that deserves needs to be made. There is a point. Ray Kurzweil, one of the gurus in this world, looks for a crossover. He gives it an unfortunate name. He borrows a term from mathematics called a singularity. He calls it the singularity. It's an unfortunate term because it's misleading. But what he means by that is there's a point at which the computers will exceed the capacity of the human brain. And that's only a few years away, not a few decades, a few years away. It's that close. And when that happens, that's a major, major milestone in the field of artificial intelligence, obviously. And we'll talk more about that. But the computers that learn are already taking these into applications of pattern recognition, navigation, and other areas. And I don't want to get to the details of this one. There's a new partnership between IBM and 3M where they're looking towards a new breed of microprocessors where they stack 100 layers of chips atop one another to make it thinner. You make things thinner for lots of reasons. Speed is part of it. When you're operating at those speeds, even a few inches can be too big an encumbrance. And so they're trying to, 3M's trying to create an adhesive that will allow this to happen. It's also, there's a heat dissipation issue and the rest of it. But this is also expected to give you 1,000 to 1 advantage, and this thing still isn't. Okay, we'll just do it manually here. Okay. So I want to get into the artificial intelligence area. The power computers obviously are continuing to accelerate. Their size, their energy, and cost are diminishing. And the facility of the hardware continues to accelerate. But both the hardware and the software are making gigantic leaps week by week as we go. And the singularity I tried to explain, that's a term that associated with Ray Kurzweil. But that's when the computational intelligence exceeds that of the human mind. That's the target. And I say, well, what's wrong with that? You have to understand what their admitted ultimate goal is. Because if you can take your intelligence and transfer it into that environment, you've achieved immortality. It's a path to immortality. And to exchange consciousness between bodies, synthetic or otherwise. And the fact that this could at least conceivably lead to a path of toward immortality can give you a glimpse of what kind of theology these people share, or lack thereof, if you will. Ray Kurzweil's concept of this consciousness not only will be able to be translated into a machine, you can combine consciousness. If you collectivize the consciousness, at the end of a documentary on his life, they ask him, do you believe there's a God? And his answer is very simple. He says, not yet. That's really the goal that they think they're on. Now, see, the real problem is, the real you, see, I can't see you. I'm standing up on stage, I can see the package you are in. You see, the real you, call it soul, spirit, touch, whatever, if you are temporary resident in a disposable hardware environment, why shouldn't it be transferable to an alternate, perhaps advantageous environment? Even a machine-enhanced environment. The day will be coming when they can create an environment that may be more hospitable than your own body, at least in their mind. So what would limit a continuing path to subsequent upgrades? I'm ready for an upgrade. I don't plan to look to them for that upgrade, by the way. Let me hasten to add that. So there's some coming nightmares coming. The real behind the scenes, something I haven't focused on, but I wanted before we're through, is talk about super soldiers armed with ultimate weapons. There is an arms race going on. It's very hidden, but very real, between all the developed countries. China, Russia, and the US, probably places in Europe, are going in this direction in the hopes of being able to field the super soldier. That could be a game changer in the pattern of nations. Networked super soldiers with unlimited mind controls. Can you imagine? Unenforced lawlessness among a privileged few is part of the scenario here. Consciousness exchanges offering a form of immortality, collective consciousness ushering in a utopian collective, or the ultimate nightmare. That's what's on the horizon. This is not decades away. These are just a matter of years in the minds of the practitioners. So we have convergent technology. We've got nanotechnologies whose goal is molecule-sized machines. We have robotics, which are aimed at being self-modifying sentient machines. That's their goal, and they're working on it. And those two technologies, grace each other. There's genetics, of course, whose goal is the self-replication of manipulated entities. And then thus from that, you'll get directable diseases targeting specific groups, maybe even individuals. There's no reason they can't design a disease that would only affect your DNA. Male, you'll have to be careful who said it, yeah? And of course, artificial intelligence, exceeding the human mind, the singularity of them. These are convergent technologies. The composite goal, self-replicating sentient machines, superior, perhaps overwhelming, combatant strengths, transfer of consciousness between and to extension bodies, a path towards immortality, a lure, of course, towards global tyranny. These things constitute a lure towards global tyranny. Can you imagine those technologies if they were in the hands of some people we know of the past? Can you imagine what they would have done? Now, something else you should know, there is a group called the Jasons. It's an independent group of scientists which advises the United States government on matters of science and technology. They were created as a way to have a younger generation of scientists to replace the Los Alamos and MIT radiation laboratory alumni. And for administrative purposes, they're administered through the minor corporation. But the point is, their sponsors include the Department of Defense, of course, and Navy and Department of Energy and the U.S. intelligence community. Most of the Jason reports are classified. They all have security clearances. They include physicists, biologists, chemists, all kinds of fields, by the way. And they're selected because of their scientific brilliance. And over the years, they've included 11 Nobel Prize laureates and several dozen members of the United States National Academy of Sciences. And classified transhuman projects are the dominant topic of the contracts that they are getting. We can't get the contracts to classified, but we can find out a lot about them. So I get this to change. Good, yeah. And I won't go through the list. You can skim through quickly on here the flavor of the kinds of contracts that are accelerating our progress in what they collectively call transhumanism. And now we have a highly classified priority agenda that drives a widespread global arms race that will eclipse all others. And so this is leading what we call the age. What's leading to is the age of hybrids. And there's another kind of hybrid I want to talk about before we're through, but we talked about the wrath and the dangers. Okay, what are the dangers here? I've highlighted them so far. Let's back up a second here. One of the dangers of all of this is it ignores what I call the metacosm. And for this and almost everything else that we publish in our materials, you may want to understand what that term means. There are boundaries to the reality, to our physical reality. Those are well known today, by the way. I don't want to touch on that. I'm going to use the symbol of Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man as a representation of the reach of man. Okay, that represents you and me. And I'm going to let on the diagram up there, let size increase to the right. Bigness is to the right, smallness to the left. Okay. Now, as we look towards things that are larger than ourselves, we'll call that collectively the macrocosm. And that plunges you into the study of astronomy and astrophysics and topics like that. We have whole presentations on each of these topics, but the main thing here is 20th century science. The great discovery of 20th century science is that the universe is finite. It's not infinite. It may be expanding, but it's finite. And that's both thermographically and other reasons demonstrable. So the macrocosm, there's a limit to the size of the universe. And because there is, that's what gives rise to these speculations called the Big Bang and whatever. We know it had a beginning, and we know that it'll ultimately have an end. But let's move on from that. Let's go the other way. Let's look at smallness. And now we'll call that the microcosm. When you get into this world, it gets weirder than any of the others, at least with quantum physics and subatomic particles. And whether you're talking about length, mass, energy, or time, you discover that everything is small, has a limit to how small it can be. So you and I would think that if I took a piece of string, I cut it in half, no problem. I take the half, I could cut it in half, and you would think that conceptually, at least I could do that for it. It might get too small to literally do, but your thinking is, whatever I've got left, I can cut in half. That turns out to be true. It turns out when you get to 10 to minus 33 centimeters, that's very small, and try to cut that in half, it loses a very peculiar property. It loses a thing called locality. It has what they call non-locality. And it's been proven in the laboratory that every photon in the universe knows exactly what every other photon in the universe is doing in a certain sense. That there's a concept of non-locality that's philosophically shattering. But the main point is there is a limit to smallness. Now, I want you to understand the implications of this. You and I are in an environment that turns out to be a virtual simulation that's a digital simulation. And now, that's not my conclusion. You get Scientific American, June of 2005, there's an article there that highlights this sort of thing. The scientists are disturbed because they're discovering that some of the constants of physics are changing. And it's very hard to prove, and they're working very hard at that, but it's turning out they are. And what the article points out, that if the constants of physics are changing, that implies that our reality is a shadow of a larger reality. That's their words, not mine. And when I saw that, I just jumped for joy, because that's exactly what the Bible's been saying all along. Is that, well, let's see, I think I jumped a little further. No, I think I spared you a diversion here. There is, the ancient Hebrew sages, Maimonides, from his study of the book of Genesis, concluded that the universe has 10 dimensions. Only 4 are knowable. 6 are not knowable. That's in his writings in the 13th century. We've spent hundreds of billions of dollars creating atomic accelerators, which have now revealed to us that the universe has apparently 10 dimensions. 4 are directly discernible. 6 we know are there, we can't get at. There's curl less than 10 to the minus 35 centimeters. So we've spent all that money discovering what Maimonides learned by just studying the Hebrew text of the book of Genesis. And I'm not being facetious, I'm being quite serious. And so we live in a simulation that's limited to 4 direct dimensions we can experience. And by the way, not only is what the Bible says, it lists them in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 18, are 4 dimensions that we have. So it's no surprise to Paul, if you will. But we now also have knowledge that there's 6 other dimensions that we can't get at directly. Now, we can glibly call that the spiritual world or something. We're going to more consistently is this physical reality is embedded in something larger, which we call the Metacosm. And that's the domain. When you start studying angels, we have a whole background around that one. And that's what we suspect is the domain of the UFOs. Because we now know they're transdimensional. They're not intergalactical, they're transdimensional. And I'll get to that in a little bit here, I think. Our universe is but a shadow of a larger reality. Scientific American, June of 2005. But let's finish up the transhumanism. See, the problem with transhumanism, it ignores the metacosm. People are traveling to that's a supernatural. The supernatural warfare where you and I are both the puppets and the prizes. That's what's going on. The transhumanists are totally oblivious to that. They have no grasp of that. When you open up a communication channel in our software, we might call it soul sphere or whatever, it yields access permission that is not reversible. And those of you that saw The Exorcist, William Blatty's novel was based on case study. And what started that whole nightmare was a gal playing, it was a guy, not a gal, but this is the point. It was based on case studies. Putting on the Ouija board, which is an entry. And some of these video games and so forth are potentially entries. Let's take a look at the scripture here a little bit. We're all familiar with Nebuchadnezzar's dream of Daniel 2 and also Daniel 7, the different set of idioms, but same subject really. And we all know about the 4 empire, the gold, silver, brass, and iron, and the Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. We've all been there. But when you get to verse 43 of Daniel 2, where Daniel is explaining all this to Nebuchadnezzar, he gets to this peculiar stuff called the iron mixed with clay. Everyone remembers the legs are iron and the feet are iron mixed with clay. Verse 43 says, whereas thou sawest, speaking of, this is Daniel explaining to Nebuchadnezzar, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, he switches to a personal pronoun, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. What's he talking about? No one should know. Nobody knows. I tell you, we do know. That means that they, whoever they are, have to be something other than the seed of men, or they can't make them. In other words, the grammar requires them to be two separate, non-mixable groups. So what are they? We don't know. And the personal pronoun is relevant here. And I want you to notice that the seed of men, they're not the seed of men. They're not mankind. Are they hybrids? Possible. Are they somehow not the seed of men, they're the seed of something else? Are they Nephilim? Could be. Or maybe something even more sinister. Are they aliens of some other kind? And that's what's so provocative, that the two guys who wrote a book a year ago and published in April of 2012, they predicted the abdication of the Pope, which hadn't happened for 600 years. And then 11 months later, in February of 2014, the Pope abdicates. Those two guys, Tom Horn and Chris Putnam, made the front pages. Well, they just published another book in April of 2013, which reveals the fact that the Vatican is committing substantial resources as they prepare to receive what they believe will be an alien visitor of some kind. What on earth is going on? We need to remember that in the scripture, it's not, Antichrist isn't a guy, it's a duet. There's two people there involved, a false prophet and the other one. I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth who had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And see, the second beast is from the earth, and so forth. Some people think it's a Jew because of the Greek allusion of this in John 5:43 is allos, not heteros, and that implies he's Jewish. That's not conclusive in my mind, but that's the way some of the beliefs come about. And he apparently is received by Israel, among other things, from Psalm 55 and others. But he exercised all the power of the first beast before him. He caused the earth, and he's the one that caused the earth, and then to dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, really. And he seeth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, and which had the wound by the sword and did live. You see, the identities are consistent through there. And he had the power to give life unto the image of the beast, really. That the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the beast should be killed. Interesting stuff. He gave life to the image of the beast, and so on. Okay. And he caused both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive the mark in the right hand or in the foreheads, that no man might buy or sell, say that he had a mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And there's been a lot of discussion about this. This mark, by the way, is prohibited all through the Torah and elsewhere. But whose numbers? Everybody gets confused about this. You hear the articles about insertable chips and nanopower when I was on their board, all that kind of talk, RFID chips, barcodes for implementation. They missed the point. It's not our number that's the issue, it's his number that's at issue. And it's his name that is the crucial identity aspects, not the participants here. And and there's a whole study on that you can get into if you like, but most of what's written has missed the point. But the thing I really want you, before you get too disturbed about transhumanism, I want to go the other way and talk about God, places when he limits boundaries and the limits to human arrogance.
Amen.
God does put a line in the sand.
Hallelujah.
Back in Genesis 11, I want you to remember that chapter. The whole earth at that time was one language and one speech. It came past as they journeyed from the east. They found a plain on the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And this plain of Shinar is where Babylon emerges, of course. And they said one to another, go and let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for a stone and slime them we had for mortar. Then go, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name that lest we be scattered on the face of the earth. And so that you all know about the Tower of Babel. But I want you to notice the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men built it. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. See, the unpardonable sins, to use that phrase, not to make that identity, but the thing that God would not allow is giving them the freedom to do anything they could imagine to do. There's a point at which they draw the line. And by the way, who's he talking to here? There's a conversation within the Trinity, analogous, if you will, to Psalm 2, where all three of them are having a discussion. Check it out if you haven't done that before. God says, go to, let us, plural us, by the way. By the way, did you know in Hebrew how many it takes to make a plural? In English, it's 2. In Hebrew, it's 3. I thought that's kind of interesting. Go to, let us go down and there confound their language that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from on the face of the earth. And they left off to build a city. So let us go down. I think that's fun. And that's the beginning of Babel and all that. Okay, let's shift here. We've talked a little bit about this. Oh boy. Well, let me skip right to it here. I think I've touched on these. The ultimate enigma, you want to be the interval between the miracle of our origin and the mystery of our destiny. That's our challenge continually. But I made an allusion earlier that I want to double back on here. I said I couldn't see you, that you're in temporary hardware. There's an analogy I want to draw between computers and ourselves. We all know a computer has hardware, microcircuits, memory, wires, whatever. And there's also software. There's a user interface, there's internal interfaces, and machine language, what have you. If you knew everything there is to know about every wire, every resistor, every piece of hardware that's in my computer, could you tell me anything about its behavior? And the answer is no, not really, because it's simply a residence for software, right? And I want to draw that analogy. You see, the software are other things, but that's fine. I always like to use this slide. The slide represents the hardware of man. It's very simple. As a switch, it's on and off, right? Whoops, did it switch for me, huh? Okay. Did I get it right? You got the complicated. I didn't see it here. It went too fast for me. Okay, good. We'll leave that alone. Okay. But to be serious a little bit, there is a parallel between the hardware in our physical body and software and our actual self. The real you, whether set the vocabulary aside, whether it's soul, spirit, mind, your thoughts, whatever, that collectively is software, not hardware. And the thing I want to get across is software is not material. Software is information. It has no mass in and of itself.
It's mathematics.
Why it's the same whether the switch is on or off. The 1 or 0 it has no. And can I see where I get going here?
It's math.
Now, if I take a memory device, I'm using a diskette here, that's blank, okay, and I put that on a postal scale, it has nothing on it, it will weigh about 7/10 of an ounce. I can spend hundreds of dollars and load it with millions of bytes of software, and what will it weigh? Okay, well, if I add that all up, it still will weigh 7/10 of an ounce. In other words, there's no change. The software has no mass. Are you with me? Okay, I can even take software and send it through the airwaves, can I? Right? See, the implication is time is a property of mass, with mass. If it has no mass, it has no time dimension to it. Okay? Now, that's the physics of software. It has no mass. See, the weight of a storage device is not impacted by the presence of the software. It can be sent through the airwaves. It's all software is not constrained by time. Time is a physical property that varies with mass, acceleration, and gravity, among other things. So your destiny is eternal, whether you are saved or not. The real you is software, not hardware. I can't see you. I can only see the package you happen to be in at the moment. Software has no mass. Now, my package has a little too much mass, but it doesn't do much software. Okay. Now, you are temporarily resident in a package in a disposable hardware environment. The real you has no mass. Your temporary container may have too much mass, but the real you requires no time dimension. You are eternal, whether you are saved or not. That'll disturb a lot of theologians here. The issue is not your eternity. The issue is where you're going to spend it. And Walter Martin used to point out there's two paths to God to heaven. One path is that you never make a mistake from the time you're born on. You never sin. You never fumble. You have no sin at all. You go through your whole life without sin. And then when you get to the pearly gates, you tell God, move over. There's two of us. And of course, he was being facetious, as was his style, just to get a point across. No, we're not perfect. But the good news is God himself, knowing that, entered his creation and paid our price for us. You know all that here. So if you're perfect, there's no problem. But it's time for all of us, I'm going to suggest, is to renew our citizenship. And one of the most difficult things people ask me, what's happening to America? Boy, I don't know. There's a whole other topic we could explore, and that is the encroaching darkness and the fact that all the things that made our country great up through the 40s, 50s, 60s maybe, it's gone. We do not have a constitutional government. We do not have freedom of speech. We do not have a Bill of Rights. And that's all been, what's amazing isn't that it's happened. What's amazing is that nobody cares. Nobody notices. The apathy, partly because the entire middle class has gone on the take too. They've also got the cancer of entitlement mentalities. So there's a lot going on. So we could talk a lot about the coming scenario. With Psalm 80, I'm dropping a few thoughts here so we'll get some questions, but Psalm 83, I think, is a prelude to Ezekiel 38, an anticipated world leader who will be exploiting a global crisis. And there will be roles, I believe, this is personal suspicion, involving what apparently are alien encounters and creatures beyond our imagining. And that will climax in an actual Armageddon, of course. And your challenge, I always like to close with a challenge on the screen, which if you accept what I put on the screen, you flunk the course. I'm going to put something on the screen in sincerity, but I want you to challenge it because it's ridiculous. I believe that you and I are being plunged into a period of time about which the Bible says more than it does about any other period of time in human history, including the time that Jesus walked the shores of Galilee or climbed the mountains of Judea. That's preposterous. Challenge it. Don't accept it for heaven's sakes. But how do you challenge that statement? You got to do two things to do that. Two basic challenges. First of all, you got to find out what the Bible really says. Not what Gino or Chuck or somebody else. It's too important to delegate. You need to find out what the Bible itself actually says. And the good news is it's never been more available in the history of man. In our environment today, the Word of God is more available than it's ever been in the history of man. You do not have to know Hebrew and Greek to examine the Hebrew and Greek of the original texts. The software that'll do it for you. You can put your finger on any word and it'll tell you what the original word said in parts of speech and more than you even know about. And that software is free of charge, available on the internet in many other ways. We are without excuse. And the information appliances we travel with, absolutely astonishing. Many of us carry 6 Bibles in our phone. You've got to be kidding. And the internet. Here's the other point. All of man's knowledge is a couple of clicks away on the internet. On any subject you can articulate. The availability of information on anything is astonishing. We are indeed without excuse. But the second thing you got to do, that's not enough. You got to find out what's really going on. You've got to answer the rhetorical question that Pilate threw into the Bible. What is truth? You need to find out. Now, you have a real disadvantage there because we live in a culture that is decided there is no truth. Science used to be the quest for truth. There's a difference between science and technology. Technology produces products. It validates itself with products. Science is a priesthood. If you don't know, if you don't have the right creed, you are excluded from the career. Science is a priesthood. It's not connected. It's not a quest for truth. And furthermore, we now find ourselves in the age of deceit. You can't believe anything the papers say you. I love what Warren Wiersbe says, that anyone that believes an airport announcement would believe anything. No, our papers, our news services, the good news is the internet's an end run on those. Not that everything on the internet is true, of course not. But there are reliable sources of information on the internet. You need to search them out and check them out and take advantage of that. But the other thing that's happening, and I think that's really the people that want to start talking about UFOs, the Vatican is accepting a visitor, the experts will generally agree that what we're dealing with here is a very well orchestrated cosmic delusion. There is a specific delusion that's going to be sprung that if it were possible, it will deceive the very elect, Jesus said. And even Paul talks about it as being given over to the lie, not just a lie, a specific lie. I don't know what it is, but I suspect that it's somehow going to involve all these things. The world is going to change dramatically. The good news is many of the things that we know are on the agenda happen right after the Harpazo. The next event is none of those things we talked about. The next event in the scenario will be the Harpazo, which I personally suspect is deliberately indeterminate in order to catch Satan by surprise. I think that was God's strategy from the beginning. And so the good news is, I would like anyone keeping records here to notice for the first time in the history of Chuck Missler, I think I finished on time. Okay. So, Pastor, I'll turn it over to you. It could be a Q&A or however you want to handle that.
Yeah.
I apologize for the confusion on the slides, but
I mean, it is what it is. Chuck, we need to get you another computer. That's part of that hyper technology. You can see why Chuck Missler.
All right, so we don't really need to see the question and answer, though it is very interesting. I love Chuck so much. I miss that guy. I made friends with him early on. It's probably 2012 when I was going to a lot of Prophecy Watcher conferences, and I had an interest in Bible codes, and he spoke a lot about that. He and L.A. Marzulli, and I spent a lot of time with both of them, sitting in the foyers there, in the alcoves of those venues, just talking and showing him codes and things like that. Fascinating man. The only thing I disagreed with him on were just very minute, and that was the timing of the rapture. And of course, that came kind of later. And my relationship with him, he passed away. I want to say 2018. So surely miss him. And I would love to pick his brain on what he thought of where we are now. Of course, this was about 12 years ago. that presentation he just did. Amazing, huh? A lot of the things that he was just talking about is very relevant right now. The Neuralink stuff, they are doing that, right? You know, the Hawking's, that disease that makes you debilitated and you're in a wheelchair and you can't speak and stuff like that. They have this thing that they can put on, you know, on the outside of the skull that can connect you with a computer, where you can move a cursor on a computer. You can actually talk in a robot voice, all that kind of stuff. And so, you know, the technology is certainly there, and it's advancing every day. So why does that matter? Well, you know, because we have certain scriptures in the Bible that, if you look at them really closely, they seem to be implying, you know, the time that we're living in. Like, you know, the passage in Revelation talking about iron and clay mixing. You mentioned that. I believe, you know, that's AI and robotics and the sentient AI. I mean, I don't think all AI is bad, you guys. And I want to make a distinction really quick, because that's going to be relevant here to later when I talk to you about my surprise, right? But sentient AI is where I think we have a bad problem. It's going to be dangerous. This is the one that you, well, if you guys have been watching the Blaze with gosh, what's his name, the Mormon over there on the Blaze, I can't think of his name now, but he just, Glenn Beck, that's right. He's been doing a lot on this AI stuff here recently, and he had a really good video he just put out where he's talking about these things and talking about some, I mean, really relevant stuff that nobody's talking about. We've had some people here and there, and, you know, we've had Elon Musk say we're summoning the demon and stuff, but nobody's touched it. And I have a, you know, I'm just being led in that direction right now to look into it. Yes, absolutely, the beast system. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the codes that we're going to look at. Cryptocurrency, that kind of technology. And I don't mean cryptocurrency or anything in specific. That technology is going to be a big part of the beast system and a monetary system that we're going to move to. You know, they're going to kill the dollar. They're going to kill all the paper money and gold and silver, and we're going to go to something else where you have it in your hand and your forehead, right? That's the system. That's part of that, the beast system. But it's also much more than that, you guys, with the technology we're going to, the infrastructure that's been built right before our eyes for years and years and years. I'm telling you, even as innocent as going to Walmart now or driving down the road, you are being tracked and calculated, and mathematical equations and algorithms are being, you know, designed around you that at some point can predict your activity, which is, you know, that's another subject I want to kind of get into, because eventually this technology is going to be able to predict the future, you guys, based on calculations, probabilities. There was a TV show in the 90s called Numbers on CBS, and that whole show was about two brothers. One was a mathematician and one was a police detective. And the mathematician would aid his brother in, you know, forming these equations that would predict, you know, crime, or, you know, based on a particular person and habits and all the information about that person. They were able to predict, theoretically, in the basis of the show, predict when and where a crime was going to happen. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and look that up. It was a fascinating show. It's all based on numbers, mathematics, and that's what I was just pointing out a little while ago. One of the terms that you heard Chuck Missler say, and in your scriptures, is as in the days of Noah. You guys familiar? I apologize for the this is not a really good I think it's because of so much information all condensed. This PDF is not really easy to look at. That's down at 70%, but if we blow it up, it's that's probably better if we do it like that and just, let me back it up so you can just kind of see it as a whole. It's a lot of information here. This is one that I've had to reconstruct because, well, this was years ago that I found that, and the original computer doesn't exist anymore. But you can see all of the relevant verses that are running through here. And by the way, this is the prophets and the Psalms where this is. I think this is Isaiah. It runs right through here, where you can see there's a mention of Hallel, and I think this is Isaiah 14 right here. Anyway, relevant. You can see the date too. When I first found this is 2015, years ago. All the relevant terms in here. This particular subject, CERN, the video that we just watched, didn't contain any information on that, but there are others from Chuck Missler where he speaks on CERN and the connection to all of this. So it does have a relevant, a place in some of this technology and some of the things that we're seeing that these scientists and are doing. CERN is there. Nephilim runs right across there. Blood moons. Guys, we're about to come through a blood moon here in just a couple of days that are going to be right over the United States on, I think it's the 15th. So these are signs in heaven that are indicating the times that we're in. At the time that I was looking at this, we were in a Shemitah cycle. So that's why you see Shemitah there. We see the term Raphaim. Of course, the president at the time was Obama. In the plain text, as in the day of the Lord, right there. Very interesting vertical anomaly here, where Hillel is, or this is also the name that they translate into Lucifer, talking about the gates of hell, vertical through there. And then another cluster here, darkness and wickedness, with CERN running through there. And then we've got Hasatan. And behold, evil is praised where Satan is. You can see Satan in black and red right there. Evil is praised. That has definitely been the season we've been in up until this new election. And how refreshing it is to see all the work that's been done in the past, less than about a month that he's been in. Hopefully we can turn this train wreck around. Nibiru here as well. Even Hamas was relevant back in 2015, and even to this day, still a relevant term in here. So as the days of Noah, that evil is praised kind of stands out to me with referring to as in the days of Noah, you guys, and certainly some of the trans stuff that we've seen, not just transhuman, I mean like trans gender kind of stuff that we've seen. That kind of debauchery is, I think it plays in as in the days of Noah, right? Where we get the Baphomet, where things are flipped. Man and woman are flipped, right? We also see, well, I don't want to get into it. A lot of things happening in Genesis where y'all had to destroy the earth. But around chapter 6, which we're going to look at in just a moment in one of these codes, let's move to the next one. The gates of the abyss, another term that is speaking to this. As you can see there's the Axis term in the purple there. We also have the Nephilim and Raphaim, which is kind of, if you can imagine a zipper, Raphaim and Nephilim are kind of coming together as almost like a zipper together with the letters there. The Watchers right under that. We've also gotten a Nephilim across there with judgment and awake, as in the days of Noah, or in the days of Noah. That shouldn't say as in. It's in the days of Noah. CERN is here a couple of times. The word Shiva, which is in Hebrew, that's 7, but in this context because we're talking about CERN and what they're doing there, awakening these or creating a pathway for these fallen ones to come through. We've got Shiva, which is the goddess of destruction in Hindu. Shiva's down here as well. Shiva also means 7, guys. We have the word Atlas, which is part of the CERN structure there. Elijah and the 7 thunders. Together here we got a word awake and the thunders, wickedness and awake. Computer in the plain text here, and Apollo. Lucifer is also here. Gates of the abyss, and context is CERN. And then, of course, there's the mark of the beast, which I'm currently working on reconstructing this one because I think there's even more relevant things that wasn't known at the time that I originally did this. We were looking at stuff like the RFID, which you can see is here. The access term is in the black and red. The mark of the beast is connected with the Pope, America, running across the top there. Judgment, several places in the black and red. Judgment, computer and wickedness coming together. Computer also at an angle here. And then we have an anomaly here, which says a sign in the hand. FEMA. Of course, this was at the time of Obama, so that makes sense why his name is here. And that's why I said we need to update this, because I'm sure there's a lot of other things here that we didn't know. And I think this goes back to 2014 and 2015 as well, when I originally did this. The economy playing a role, and then also all the verses that seem to be relevant that run through this table here. So that is the mark of the beast. And I want to show you something really interesting. This was also a PDF, but I've got it up to a point where it's almost to the point where I had it. So this is one I've reworked. Now this access term is Nephilim. The interesting thing about this particular term, and by the way, Nephilim is encoded several times. This is the smallest one, 492. And it's way up in Genesis. As you can see here, Genesis 1, Bereshit, bara Elohim, et Hashemayim. Right there, Genesis 1. Guess where we are here? So Nephilim, the access term, coming to rest right here. And this is, even though there's not a lot of terms here, sometimes the more simple tables seem to speak the loudest because you see a lot going on here, even though it's just a few terms. So we got the Nephilim, but we also have it in the plain text here, the very same word. This verse that it's sitting on is the exact place where the Bible speaks about the Nephilim. Let's go there and look at that real quick, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. The vertical term that's right next to the Nephilim, I found this not in the original, but here recently, I saw the 2 different words here, oats and or. Oat means signal or a sign, and then or means light. So I'm not sure if this is something significant for that. I just thought it was interesting that this permutation of letters is sandwiched right next to the Nephilim. So let's go to this verse, and of course you could just right click on that, go to the Hebrew. You can see we are in Genesis 6. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and the daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives, all of which they chose. And Yah said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Then there were giants in the earth in those days. That's where we are here. Here. And then there were giants in the land on those days. 6:4. And there were giants in the earth in those days. And after that, when the sons of Elohim came into the daughters of men, and they bare children unto them, and they became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And of course, that is the Nephilim. So interesting how we have the Nephilim in the plain text and the Axis term all coming together. I mean, you can't get a better cluster, right? So your subject, your context, the Nephilim, and the actual verse coming together, that's amazing, right? So we're in Genesis here. And if you guys know anything about Genesis, when Genesis 6 happened, and then, what happens after that with the flood, and, there's a battle of, before that, there's a battle of, giants. The Raphaim are in the land. You can see here, Raphaim, by this time let's just go there. I forget what chapter that is. 14 by this time. So, as you can see.
What is Raphaim?
Raphaim are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Okay, so when the Nephilim died, they became Raphaim because Nephilim don't have a resurrection. And so they became spirits that wandered. This word is also associated with demons as well. But it can also mean healer. It also can mean a healer. Rapha, which means to heal, and im, which is the plural, could be interpreted as healer. So, do you see here in the plain text? Let's go there. And that is 14, verse 5. And in the 14th year, when Sheddalamar, and the kings that were with him, and smote the Raphaims in Asheroth. So anytime you see the Aims, the Raphaims, the Karnaims, the Zusims, the Emims, the Kirathims, there's several of them. Anakim, Anakim, the Enochs. You'll see that also in the, I'm looking, you'll see those as well in the text. And the descendants of those happen to be all the ites in the land, right? So like the Amorites and the Canaanites, all the ites, the Perizzites, and the ones that were like Amorite, the ones that Yah commanded them to go into the land and destroy, right? These were hybrids. And this is where we get a lot of people, certain type of people who come against Christianity and say, oh, I wouldn't be a Christian. That's a horrible God. He kills all these women and children. He's murderous. Well, yeah, that's who they are right there. Marty, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Canaanites, the Jebusites, all the ites were the descendants of these hybrids. And so you would have people with 6 fingers and 6 toes. That would be an outward sign of that genetic or that genome. And it still exists to this day, by the way. Yes, that's exactly what it was. It was the prodigy and the effects of these angels sleeping with women. Now, I don't know people that hear that and are like, that is crazy. That's crazy talk, right? There's no way. Well, this is where they get the demigods, by the way. In like Greek mythology and Roman mythology, this is where the demigods come from. You do realize that, right? It came from the Bible first. The Bible may not have been penned or put together until later. But the understanding from Genesis going all the way back to creation was these hybrids. There were those that, like the Raphaim, there's an element of healing. I heard one of these speakers talking about the Nephilim had an ability to heal themselves. Like if they got injured, their body was able to repair it in an advanced rate, sort of like a superhero that gets wounded and then their wound goes away, right?
All right, I want to go back to the codes for a moment. Let's look at where the Nephilim, the one we just looked at here just a moment ago, the Nephilim and the Nephilim in the text there. Some of the terms that were here, I should have went over this already. Noah, Enoch is in a plain text there. This, of course, is the story of Noah and Enoch and Methuselah and, all the sons of Noah, the rebellion, all that. Very small skip, I remember, 492. In the days of Noah, in the yellow here, connecting with the mem in Nephilim. And then we have the word for singularity in the blue there. And then hybrid in the green. And then over here, we got in reverse, starting with the resh, vav, bet, vav, tet, is the word robot. And then we have genome and abortions that come together on the vav there. And I suspect this has a lot to do with what they're doing with aborted babies. Genome, of course, back over the other way, we had where Raphaim is. We have the computer, and is the computer off the side now. And the from Golem, if you don't know what a Golem is, check that out. That is a created being that is meant to serve. And I wanted to show you this as well. This was the from Elon Musk here, Elon Musk. And this is where they're connecting to the brain, the Neuralink computer is also right here in the plain text. Hybrid, and look at there, there's a root for judgment there. Hybrid and abomination and agents that crosses the bottom here. What else do we got to open here? I am reconstructing the mark of the beast and as the days of Noah, and that is it. All right, so that's what I got for you guys for this broadcast. Thanks for watching the video. Please, if you haven't already, like or subscribe to the channel. Please comment down below. And if you have any ideas on this particular subject, words that we haven't looked at yet, put that down below, and we'll check and see if it's in some of these tables. All right. Shalom to you. May Yah bless you.